Yeah.
Yeah, it's going going. Well, no,
Good morning, everybody. I hope you are all extremely well. I think my starting time is going to be a little bit interesting because exactly now at 10 o'clock, well, anytime between now and 10:15, my power is going to come back on after load shedding. So there might be a bit of a dip in lighting, but don't worry. Theoretically, my server and my internet connections should remain stable. I suppose that's part of the joys that and the things we currently need to be comfortable with and sort of get used to. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this morning. It is always an honor for me to have this conversation with other legal practitioners, and it is obviously an honor for me to be doing a webinar about business strategies for law firms on behalf of LSSA. And thank you for everybody at LSSA and LEAD for inviting me to do this webinar. I'm always happy to be part of any of LEAD's webinars. Alrighty, so just very quickly. Okay, somebody's having an audio problem. Can somebody else just give me like a thumbs up? Are we happy about audio if everybody else is?
Morning, Songa.
Okay.
We can hear you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, so maybe I'll ask the friendly ladies from LSA just to maybe make contact with the person that's struggling there. All right. So just quickly, introduction and house rules. Guys, please ensure that your microphone's on mute, except for obviously when you say thank you, I can hear you. Thank you for that. And because background noise can obviously be a little disturbing. I'm sorry, I think you guys are picking up a little bit of generator in my background, so excuse me for that, but it should be fine soon. Let's keep our cameras off. I actually prefer cameras on, but I suppose for the sake of bandwidth, it's a little better if we keep it off. And the LSSA does record this session, but it's just for quality purposes. So unfortunately, the recording will not be made available afterwards. So please make notes as we carry on. But you will see in any event today will be a very conversational sort of webinar. I think I approach things slightly differently. We'll talk all about that now, but so please make notes as we go along. So please make notes. I will take questions at the end, but I must say I do like having conversations, or if I run away with you, please do stop me. But today's session isn't actually a training session in the traditional way, like I do the eviction and rental webinar as well, and that's obviously very different. This is more a thought-provoking, well, I hope it to be a more thought-provoking webinar where we discuss business principles and things like that. So for comments or questions, let's keep it in the chat. You can do it at any time. However, I know myself, I tend to get a little carried away in my conversation, and I'm a bit of a storyteller. So in my discussions, I sometimes forget completely to look at the chat box and questions and answers, but I do suggest that you do type them out. We will take a quick break sort of in the middle of the webinar, because I know you need to go and top up your coffee and to stay awake. So we will take a break at around 11:15. So just to plan your day, be aware of that little break that we will be taking. The PowerPoint presentation will be uploaded to the eLeader platform, and there will be instructions on how to print it. That will be after the webinar. You will note anyway from my presentation, I am not a deaf by PowerPoint person. So unfortunately, I would need you to stay awake and focus during the conversation. But the slides will be available, and I will also be available for conversations in the future. I love being part of an entrepreneur's journey, and that's obviously what you guys are. So that is the house rules. I hope you got that, and let's then get into it. So before I get started, I just want to make sure you guys are all set and that you do have a pen and a paper and you can make a few notes. Please make sure, see, there's the load shedding now. It ended. It's a good thing. Please make sure that you do have everything done for the next 3 hours, so you don't get interrupted, because the truth is, this is, like I said, a conversation more than a webinar, in the sense of me sharing facts and things like that. So enjoy the webinar, and please feel free to ask any questions and comment in the chat, so we can discuss any of those things that is happening. All right, so while I said you guys must put your phones on Do Not Disturb, I am doing exactly the same thing. All right, so why on earth am I doing this webinar? How did this happen? The thing is, I actually started around 13 years ago already. I think ladies from LSSA, we're all actually surprised that it's been 13 years already. I started doing the eviction seminars for LSSA, and that's sort of how I came into the space of presenting webinars for LSSA. And as our relationship progressed, obviously, there were a few other topics that I think is interesting when it comes to legal practitioners. So just a quick intro there. I am Silna Steyn. I am the Managing Director of SSLR Incorporated. So currently SSLR is one of the best known, if not the best known, firm in the rental and eviction space. So I think we're one of the only firms that specifically specialize in rentals when it comes to both residential, commercial, retail, and industrial properties. And so it's not just the eviction element, but it's the entire relationship between landlord and tenant that we specialize in. So the reason why I get to talk about that particular topic is, obviously, I've been doing evictions for quite some time. This year is the 15th year that SSLR is in existence. But the reason why I then talk about business and not just the evictions is actually I am more an entrepreneur than a lawyer, as much as I'm an admitted attorney, and I've been admitted for about 15 years now, slightly more. It's actually a scary thought, but that's a conversation for another day. I have been an entrepreneur my entire life, and that's actually where I wanted to start the conversation today. So I've done this webinar last year. I mentioned to everybody at LSSA, if I look at legal practitioners, I think one of the biggest things that we struggle with, as much as we know the law and we're so comfortable finding our way in types of business, do we do a company? Do we do a sole proprietor? Do we do a partnership? It's easy for us because we do that for our clients. But for some reason, as much as we can sit in a boardroom and we can assist a client to set up a beautiful investment structure, when it comes to our own businesses, even the guys with BCom LLBs, even that BCom degree, as much as it helped you a little bit to actually run the business of a law firm, while you still need to actually practice within your firm, what does that look like? And a lot of us are lucky enough and blessed enough to be in big enough firms where, as the business owner, as the managing director, as the managing partner, you do have enough time to actually apply your mind to business strategies and things. Most of the time in a startup firm, and by startup, I actually mean, like I said, my firm is 15 years old this year, and it still feels like a startup to me, to be quite honest. There would always be new things. There would be things that you've never encountered. There would be things where you just, the moment you get used to how to handle maternity leave, for instance, you get one of your teammates that needs to extend their maternity leave, and you need to go back and you're like, what's the rules again around this? So as much as we know the law, the practical part of running a business is actually the thing where we very often get stuck. And what we do as legal practitioners, as lawyers, is we're so focused on the law that the next moment, as much as you know, keep your trust in your business account separate, everything is okay there. Very often we really just don't understand how a business should actually be running, not how it should be running like in a legal aspect. I actually mean how it should be running in the context of a business, not just in the context of a law firm. Are you practicing the law correctly? Fantastic. Are you actually getting the most out of your business? I'm sorry to say this, but in most cases and from most legal practitioners, I'm seeing that the answer is unfortunately probably not. And very often you get to a point where you so into your practice that 5 years into the game, you realize, okay, what's actually happening here is I'm working very hard for a very, very, very unforgiving boss. Because let's be fair, as lawyers, typically the typical personality type person that studies law isn't somebody that's going to feel like, you know what, enough is enough. None of us, and I promise, of the, how many people do we have in this webinar? About 100. Of the 100 people, there might be 10 people that can actually say, you know what, maybe I need to take a break now. The rest, and you guys, good for you. It's actually a good for you. It's not a critique. It's the rest of us need to try and be like you. The rest of us will go absolutely into the red and past it. We will run an urgent application. As soon as you finish the urgent application, something new comes in and you just take it and you just go. And sort of get to a point where, sleep is a side conversation. Eating healthy is probably not the biggest priority in your life. You just need to get this done so your client would be happy and your client might actually be willing to pay their bill. And I hope everybody on this webinar is actually legal practitioners. If we have candidate legal practitioners, guys, please don't stop your articles now. Finish your candidacy and get admitted as an attorney or an advocate. But what I want to say is we as business owners need to appreciate the fact that without us in our businesses can't work. So let me tell you a story. I told you I'm a storyteller. I'll take a sip of tea for this one. Where my story started, and you guys are welcome to read the entire story on my firm's website. I think on SSLR's website, you'll get a good feel of what we are doing as a business as well. So www.sslr.co.za. The entire story is there, but the short version is I was 6 years old when I started realizing that I'm actually an entrepreneur. I accidentally started making money with pigs. I kid you not, the pink cute things that end up as bacon. So I'm a farm girl, and my dad had pigs, and the neighbors gave me a pig as a gift. I know it's what farm people do sometimes. So I got this little pig, and my little pig ended up hanging out with my dad's male pigs. And the next moment I had more piglets, and I sold them to some of the people on the farm, and I actually made money. And I thought, well, this is cool. And from there, the entrepreneurship bug bit me when I was 6. So I have been into that since a very, very young age. It gave me exposure to what you should and what you shouldn't be doing. I went from pigs into vegetable farming, realized that the environment plays a very big role in your business, whatever it is. Then I ended up with chickens later, and I started exporting peaches. So I've always been very busy when it comes to business. Then I was 24 in 2008, and my ex-husband at the time, he was with a conveyancing firm. I was actually busy interviewing with one of the big banks as a legal advisor because I said I will never practice law for a day in my life. I didn't enjoy my articles. I did my articles at a third-party firm, moved to another firm, and I actually just didn't enjoy third-party litigation. And I think it didn't give me the exposure to law that me personally, as my personality type, should have received. My principals were awesome, and especially the second principal gave me an exposure to medical negligence claims and things like that, which is amazing law and amazing litigation exposure. But it made me feel like this is not the kind of law that I want to practice, but because I was busy with my articles, didn't understand what law could be all about, I actually thought I don't want to be an attorney, and I actually said I'll get admitted and that's it, and then I'm going to be a legal advisor. But then in 2008, the recession started, and we decided, actually, my ex-husband started a firm then, and he said he's going to start a firm. And I said, no, it's cool. I'm still going to go to the bank as a legal advisor. It sounds like a more secure salary. And the moment he went out to buy the printer, I was sold. I said, no. If there's a business that I can get into, I probably rather want to do that. So started that. I was 24, and interesting fact here, this was my first job post-admission as an attorney, and I think every one of you would actually appreciate my honesty in this one, because I remember drafting my first summons. Now I'm a partner in a law firm. It's my first job post-admission, and I have to draft this summons, and because I've done third-party claims my entire life, just want to see, somebody says I am breaking up. Is everybody else getting that? Because my connection seems quite stable from my side. Let me do a quick. Okay. Thank you. Everybody else says. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So if I am breaking up, apparently my connection is pretty good. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. All right. So I remember drafting my first summons, and it was the most bizarre thing. I kid you not. I actually didn't even know who do you base your jurisdiction on. Like, I didn't know. I was a partner in a law firm, and I promise you, I didn't know that I have to obviously choose my court based on the defendant. I kid you not. So I did law school. Everything was fine. I've done my articles. I was an admitted attorney. I was a partner in my firm, and I didn't know the basics of practicing law. So it was a bit of a shock to the system. Don't worry, I didn't do anything that harmed my client. I went on a very quick crash course. And I think this is the story for so many legal practitioners. We start our firms, whether you are 24, and the reason why you're starting this firm is just because you're an entrepreneur by heart and you're just running in a direction and it sounds like fun at the time, and you're trying to figure out where you're going to go, and you'll figure it out on the way, or whether it's at a later stage where you are a more experienced legal practitioner. You've done one specific kind of litigation, or you've done say criminal law for a very long time, and if you need to do anything on that side of the law, you can do that with your eyes closed, and the next moment something lands on your desk and you've never done this before. Or even an experienced motion practitioner, the first time you have to take something on trial, as easy as my example sounded of not knowing how to choose a court, it gets bigger and the risks get bigger, and we are so focused on getting the law right that we completely forget what we're doing in our business. So I think very often legal practitioners start their businesses without realizing what you are doing is actually starting a business. I have been on this journey with quite a few legal practitioners, and it's always been an honor for me to be on a journey with a new business owner, specifically in a law firm. And so often I see young legal practitioners coming out of their articles, newly admitted 1 or 2 years post-admission, and they feel that you look at the fees that you're writing in the firm that you are in, and you think, if I write that kind of fees, and I take that home, obviously that's, you know, much more than what I'm getting as a salary. And I think for at least half of us in this webinar who does have our own firms, you realize if you only had that salary, life would have been a joy. The moment you have your own firm, somebody has to pay the rent, somebody has to pay for Wi-Fi, somebody has to pay for the generator when you have load shedding. You know, your costs are so much more than what you initially anticipated. And this is why it's so crucial to really decide why you are doing what you're doing. Now, I do suspect that many of you in this conversation are already in your firm. You've already started, you're already a business owner, and you are probably sitting there thinking, what now? And if there's a good time to have this conversation, it is one day before financial year end. So I do not know how you guys got yourself into this one, but thank you so much for giving me this time, a day before financial year end. I promise I will make it worth your while. But also at the end of February, we came through December, January, February. Those months are, I don't care what kind of law you practice, it's cash flow tight months. Your team expect bonuses. Your teams expect some time to rest. We sit with sheriffs that simply say they are closed, and unless you pay an urgent service fee, you're not getting service. You sit with the deeds office that's closed. You have so many things that's standing in your way of making money when it comes to December and January. So by the time we get to February, well done, guys. We've survived another year, another financial year, and tomorrow, and we are still here. So just give yourself quickly a self high five there for making it this far, because it's not easy. And I think if you were hoping that I'm going to give you a massive motivational talk to tell you how easy it is to run a law firm and how easy it is to make money, that's not going to be it. What we're going to talk about is we're going to get very real. We're going to get very real with what we need to do to make our businesses work. And I'm willing to be very real when it comes to the hard things that you need to do as a business owner, especially having a law firm. We have rules that's limiting us in the way we're allowed to do marketing. We have rules that other industries simply don't have to play by. But the truth is, if we all play by the same rule book, yes, then we can't compete with the other companies, but they're doing other things. We're playing in art industry, and we are playing by the same rule book. So my intention would never be to say play outside of the rule book. Play within the rule book, but really make sure that you are playing ethically and you are playing a game where you can look back at the firm that you've built and you can be proud of what you've done. And if there are other guys that's excelling past you because they're not sticking to the rules, you know, it doesn't take a lot of time to look at the people that are struck from the role to realize, yes, you might be running a little quicker than the guy next to you might be running a little quicker than you because he's not playing by the rule book, but the end of his race is probably a bit more, you know, closer in the future than what yours would be if you are playing by the rules. So when you start a firm, if you've already started it, don't stress, you can stop and reevaluate at any time. But if you have the intention to start a firm or you're already in it, it's important to quickly stop. Take a step back. Why are you doing what you are doing? I promise you, running a firm is tough. Every single day is tough. The buck stops with you. The guy with the Fidelity Fund certificate, the guy that doesn't, you know, get the joy of getting the paycheck every month, but the one that has to pay the payroll, and you need to make sure everybody in your organization is well taken care of, while you need to make sure that the law that you're providing to your clients is actually sound, proper, above board, and of good quality. The buck stops with you, and you're the one that's lying awake between 3 and 4 in the morning thinking, how on earth am I going to make payroll? How on earth am I going to pay my rent? We came out of COVID, and I must say kudos to everyone that carried their firms through COVID. it was a very, very tough time with the courts closed and all the things that happened in that time, and where we had people in our organizations getting sick. So well done to everybody that did that. But it gave us an opportunity to stop and think. And what do we need to think about? Think about why you are doing what you're doing. Because if you don't, and I'm quoting Simon Sinek here, if you don't start with the why in mind, I promise you, it gets too tough at some stages. And it's sad to see how many of our colleagues, I really say this with respect, and I wish it wasn't like that. And if this webinar can have an effect to the opposite for even one of you, it's totally worth it for me. So many of our colleagues, especially straight after COVID, committed suicide or ended up in such severe mental depressed states that they're no longer practicing as legal practitioners. So stop and think about the why. Think about why you are doing what you're doing. Because to just run a firm for the sake of running a firm, or to just run a law firm because you started studying law and your mom's going to be very proud of you, not going to be enough when things get tough. When things get tough, and it does get tough, I don't know of one legal practitioner that doesn't sit at some stage in their firm saying, why on earth did I do this? What was I thinking? I thought my boss was horrible, and I thought we're writing high fees and I'm only getting like a small percentage of that in my salary. But now it's much worse. Now I have to pay a bunch of people and my clients are upset. Somebody in my team is upsetting my client and I'm the one taking the bashing for it. If your why isn't clear, it's going to get a little overly tough. And it says where your firm is. Look, even if you've had a firm for 10, 15 years and you are running a specific firm in a specific way, stop quickly and critically assess your firm. Get out of your firm, stop and look at it and see what it really is. Are you truly in the position that you would like your firm to be? If you have a small firm in a smaller town and you're running a general practice firm, just because everybody is doing that, is that really the right thing for you? The fact that you think, no, but nobody else is doing it differently, that's probably why you should start thinking about doing it differently. The firm was, it's about 5 years old when I said we need to pivot straight into rentals and evictions. Absolutely everybody around me thought I was completely crazy. Now, to their point, I don't think they're completely wrong. I think all of us, all entrepreneurs need a certain level of crazy. So I'm happy to admit and acknowledge my crazy, but it's important to know that when you are doing something out of the ordinary line of what other people are doing in your industry, that probably means you're in the right direction. Law firms, I mean, we're a dime a dozen. There is, every corner you'll find a law firm. What is your firm's story? How are you positioning your firm to make it different? Why would somebody go to your firm rather than somebody else? And I'm sorry, and if I see people dropping off the call now, I know I offended them, but please forgive me for this one. If your clients are staying with you and using you in comparison to the firm next to you because you are discounting fees aggressively, or I know nobody on this call would do that, but you're giving some benefit to somebody who's referring work to you. If that's the reason why people choose your firm over another firm, I really suggest that you stop and critically assess your firm. Be candid enough and be brave enough to talk to yourself about your business and look at why people choose your business. If you think about law currently, everybody's freaking out about AI. I personally find AI very interesting. I find tech very interesting, and I'm not a techie, not in any way, shape, or form. I have an IT boyfriend, so that keeps me tech focused enough. But I do enjoy AI. I can see where we're going with law and AI. And I think as long as we see things like AI as a risk to our businesses, we probably need to stop and readjust and pivot into the right direction to stay relevant. We all look at certain court rules and we think, sure, we can see this was made for a time when the law was very different. I look at, for instance, and forgive me for this one, but we've had so much fun with case lines. Well, I know my team enjoyed case lines, and now with court online, suddenly the joy is definitely slightly less. We have the most bizarre things happening where then we have motion court in the High Court, standard issue virtual, and then we go back and now it's standard issue in open court, and nobody can really stick to the same thing. So I very often see, I don't ever do my own appearances, but the attorneys doing our High Court appearances, they rush out to court and then suddenly rush back in, open up their laptops, and turns out it's on Teams, or they're sitting ready for action in the boardroom with Teams ready and open, and the registrar say, no, today we're doing open court, and they have to basically teleport from Roodepoort all the way into town for the High Court. It's bizarre, guys. Let's just quickly take a moment to appreciate where the law is and where technology is. We're sitting in two very different parts of development in this era. Okay, so we have a choice. Either this can frustrate us. It could be a very, very frustrating process for all of us, or it could be a beautiful opportunity. I don't think in my firm, I am trying to put a percentage on it, but in 10%, maximum 10% of our new instructions, we actually have physical consultations in our boardroom, and we have beautiful boardrooms. We have more than enough space. But in most instances, it's as simple as you have a very proper developed Google form or Outlook for not Outlook, what am I saying? Microsoft form that somebody complete. The attorney already has all the information. It takes 1 or 2 telephone calls, telephone consultations to really understand the position. Remember, like I said, we specialize in evictions. So it's a very standard set of questions that you ask, but that could be the same for any other legal practice. And that reduces the time that you're spending to work, because you can actually asking the right questions. You don't even have to have an actual consultation with your client, because remember, the majority of a consultation in any event is all about that you find a place easy enough. Would you like coffee? Would you like tea? And, you know, the whole story. I love interacting with clients, but if most of your clients sit abroad, it's quite important to pivot your way of practicing to adjust to the market as well. So there are many opportunities, many frustrations, but many opportunities. I find that in this era that we are practicing in, on the one hand, we have such developments in tech, in law, specifically law tech. And then on the other hand, it feels like on the litigation side of things, if we still sometimes stuck in the 1930s, I'm worried that somebody's going to rock up at court and still try to ask where they have to, you know, get their horse to drink water while they are in court. So it's this weird thing that we are practicing in, but see the opportunity in all of that. If you look at the future of law and you are scared of the future of law, it means you just need to and take a bit of time to think about the future of law. What is the opportunities? If you look at, for instance, contracts being generated, how many contracts, if you go online, whatever your kind of law, the kind of law is that you practice, if you draft contracts often, when last did you actually go online and Googled this particular kind of contract? So in my game, lease agreements, obviously, if you go online and you Google download free lease agreement, how many free contracts that you get pay to draft is actually available online. And what does that say to you? What does that mean for you? Say, for instance, you do joint venture agreements. So I'm comparing that now to specifically a lease agreement. Lease agreements, you're going to get free lease agreements for days. Please, nobody should ever use that. And I think we as legal practitioners have seen some of those contracts and we think, oof, I can see why this one was free. But if you look at something like a JV, which could be a relatively simple thing, but you know what the risk would be for your client to use a contract like that. Same goes for a lease, I suppose. But to bash into that industry and to just say those things are nonsense and you should never be using that. And the truth is you actually get passionate because somebody is taking fees out of your pocket. How can you use that? How can you still give your client the best quality thing while you are still competing in a market where people change? Remember, and obviously, unfortunately, I can't see any of you, but I have a good idea of what the audience would look like if we were in a room. We would have a few still much more experienced practitioners who's been in the industry for quite some while, who's really done law proper, and they've been around for quite some time. We have younger practitioners that are still used to practicing law in a slightly more traditional way. Then we have millennials. I'm a millennial myself. Millennials coming in, elder millennial coming in, and we have a very different approach to life. And then we have a few Gen Zs, and we'll have a few Gen Zs on this call. And the Gen Zs, it's an absolutely amazing generation with a very far out of the box way of looking at the future. Now, for the older, more experienced legal practitioners, guys, I would really implore you to take the time, go sit with your candidate attorneys. Actually, some of the newly admitted guys already are Gen Zs. But if you have a Gen Z in your practice, and I really hope for your sake you do, because they are brilliant, go sit with them and ask them what the future looks like. Go ask them what the future of law looks like. Even for me as a millennial, I look at the things that these Gen Z guys are saying, and it blows my mind completely. There are ways of looking at the future, and we can already future-proof our firms so much. Don't worry, you'll always have your traditional legal thinking that's required. The way we practice will change, but the way we should think around law should never change. So take the time and look at the future. And then if you want to grow your firm, to do the same thing and expect different results, in the wise words of Mr. Albert Einstein, is absolutely insanity. If you've been doing the same thing, okay, and really, and when I use examples, please, I don't mean to offend anybody. If you've been practicing conveyancing in the way you've been doing it, everything works out well, you get your X amount of instructions every month, and you are set and life is good and you carry on with that. Remember, one change in application to the deeds office, one little amendment in legislation. I know the answer is always, no, but it won't just happen. It can't happen. We will stop it. We've seen the case law. Guys, things change quickly. So don't. The old rule of not having all your eggs in one basket is a very, very good rule. If you rely exclusively on one kind of thing, just make sure you are able to pivot quick enough. If you're 100% reliant on the deeds office and the way we do conveyancing at this stage, make very sure that you have your finger on the pulse every millisecond. So if you can see there's a pivot coming, you can actually move very quickly around that. Personally, as much as I have a very, very specialized firm, rentals and evictions, I have to keep a very close eye on what's happening with, for instance, the Rental Housing Act, what's happening with the Prevention of Illegal Evictions Act. If, say, for instance, the Prevention of Illegal Evictions Act gets amended, and for some reason tenants that were in breach of the agreement and the lease agreement got cancelled. Say, for instance, buyer gets amended, and those guys don't need to be evicted in terms of buy. What does my firm look like? Well, still, it's a normal Rainbow Nicotio will never be in a position where landlords can just lock tenants out. So I'm good, but I'm aware of that. I am in a privileged position of always getting myself into things that that I probably typically wouldn't have pictured myself in. I'm on the advocacy committee for the National Property Practitioners Council, and I specifically do that. So I have a finger on the pulse when it comes to legislation amendments. So in direct conversation, obviously, with the Department of Human Settlements, whatever the kind of law is that you are practicing, get in with your industry crowd. Just because you are an attorney doesn't mean you shouldn't be part of the legislative decisions in the industry that you are serving. Actually, to the contrary, that's sort of your job as the lawyer there. You want to be part of the legislative process, but it also protects your firm from suddenly changes that you weren't ready for, but already start bringing in it. So to grow your firm, you want to open the door for new things and different things. What I mean by that is, you say, for instance, you have been doing, let me not use convincing, let me use, for instance, criminal law as an example. So you've been doing criminal law all your life. You are very comfortable in criminal law. You are comfortable in criminal court. You know, you can hang out at holding cells and you know exactly what's happening there. Well done to you. I would get so lost. But you realize that people don't have cash on them. Saturday evenings, when people have to get bailed out for drinking and driving, they don't have cash on them. Think outside of the box. You know, it's very easy to get those card payment machines where somebody can pay you. So you're suddenly competing to the guy next to you who's been doing bail applications all his life, but he's a cash kind of guy. You are able to receive money into your trust account on card payment. It's a simple arrangement with your bank, and there you go. Bobby's your uncle. Did you see that? I just said cash payment of bail money into your trust account, like any, you know, eviction lawyer would say. So there are ways of getting around things, and there are ways of repositioning the way you're doing the same law, but you're catering for your client in a different way. Marketing is a very tricky thing when it comes to marketing your legal services. Remember, the Legal Practice Council is obviously very strict on the rules when it comes to marketing, but the practical application of that is pretty simple. You are obviously allowed to market your services as an attorney. You're never allowed to market your services in comparison to another guy and say that you are better, because also, how would you know? You're never allowed to put yourself out as an expert on a field if you are, in fact, not an expert on the field. If you're a specialist firm, SSLR, we do say that we are experts in the fields of rentals and evictions, but we are. We've published a lot of work. We've published under LexisNexis. We've been training. We've been on the panel of experts for LSSA for over a decade now. We draft the widest used lease agreement in the country. We can say we're experts in the field, but don't say you're an expert and don't market your expertise if you are, in fact, not an expert on the particular field. But you are allowed to market, and there are very creative ways of marketing. Find your market where they are. Don't try and drag them out to you. I very often see attorneys using billboards or using posters next to the road. And if that works for your market, fantastic, do that. But don't carry on with something, a marketing strategy that's not working for you. The fact that you are writing for the same magazine year in and year out, month in, month out, you're writing every single month. It takes you 2 days to get that article into that column. It's cool. Your mum reads it every month. It's fantastic, but you haven't received one instruction on the back of that. Is it worth your while? And remember, the question is never, how much did you pay to get that marketing in there? How much time did you spend? Because look back at your hourly tariff. How much effort did you invest and how much did you get out? The kind of market that you're in must dictate your marketing strategy. So for the typical guy that does retirement home transfers, if you are suddenly marketing on TikTok, guys, you are barking up the very wrong tree. Yes, your client, one of them once saw one TikTok video. They were shocked for days. They couldn't believe how, somebody's eyes could be so sparkly and, all sorts of overlays and stuff and filters on TikTok videos. You're barking up the wrong tree. At the same exact same token, if you are marketing a kind of service that's more aimed at your millennial or your Gen Z client, and you are advertising in the newspaper, you are missing the mark completely. How do we know this? How do we know which market are we targeting? And so a very simple way of doing that is have a look at the ID numbers of the majority of your clients. Also, keep in mind, you might just have a specific sector of clients. So you might just have people that's born after, say, before 79. So you only sit with baby boomers and Gen Xers. But the reason for that might be you've never tried to market on the internet. Remember, social media marketing is never social media marketing. It's not the same thing. Get an expert on that field. Social media marketing, luckily at this stage, and online marketing is something that's really, really important to give to the right people. If you have a bit of a gut feel and you have a bit of a sense of understanding of your marketing and the kind of client you want to market to, fantastic. But get an expert in. I have a lovely lady that does my social media marketing, and it depends on the market that I want to target, where I choose where to go to. Let's take this for instance. If you look at LinkedIn, LinkedIn is where you go when you want to communicate to peers. It's a peer platform, and it is a very nice place to go for human resources. So if you want to recruit or you want a job, LinkedIn is your spot. If you wrote an article, a peer review article, you published in the Rebus, the Without Prejudice, and you want your peers to see what you are busy with and what you are doing. For instance, I want to market to you guys and say, hi, other legal practitioners, my firm is an expert in evictions. If you struggle with an eviction, come to me, refer your matter to me, we'll, whatever, you pay me X amount and you run the matter, or whatever the case might be, we do a fee share or whatever. That's where I'm going to market. If I want to market my services to peers like you guys. If I want to market my services to Gen X's and elder millennials, even some of the baby boomers, well done to them, Facebook is the place where you want to go. If you're trying to hit the market on Gen Z's or later millennials, guys, if you try to do that on Facebook, I am so sorry, no self-respecting Gen Z would ever have a Facebook profile, except for, don't stone me Gen Zs on this call, except for that one profile that your grandmother or your mother wants to see because they want to like it and they want to say, oh, sissy, just post the things that you are busy with on Facebook so we can see what you are doing. That's the only reason a Gen Z would have a Facebook account. Even Instagram is starting to be a little more millennial space. And you do want to go to TikTok or YouTube Shorts for your Gen Zs. It's important to know this. To advertise on Google, depending on who you're marketing to. Again, me, millennial, and I think all the millennials on this conversation would share my sentiment. Same would go for the Gen Zs. If you Google, and I'm going to use my firm as an example very often, if you Google eviction firm, eviction lawyer, just for funsies, you're welcome to do that. You will see a few firms, it's the same guys. We are the same crowd every single time that keeps on popping up on eviction firms. No self-respecting millennial or Gen Z would actually click on an advertised service because it's not organic. We want to see organic, proper content. We want to see who are actually the best guys, and then you go on Google reviews. So your Google reviews, I don't care what service you offer, is absolutely essential. Google your own firm quickly. You're more than welcome. I know you're still listening. Google your own firm quickly and see if you have any Google reviews. If so, fantastic. Look at what your star rating is and ask yourself the question, if you are looking for the service that you are offering as a law firm and you have the whatever star rating that you have, would you use yourself? Never, ever, ever, ever ask people to do reviews that never used your firm. Authenticity in today's day and age is the only true marketing currency. If you can see somebody has a 5-star rating, but there are only 3 comments, and it's all things like, oh my goodness, I have used this firm in my entire life. I've never seen something as great. They don't say anything about the specific services they're offering. You can see it was the grandmother, the aunt that was, asked to put up a nice review. If you have clear 5-star ratings with no comments, it's an issue. Look at those things. People look at reviews, and that is actually how you get business. And you might be sitting on the other side of the screen saying, no, but not my business. My specific kind of firm, the kind of law I'm practicing, nobody ever runs into me on Google. I promise you, nobody and no business in this current day and age is safe from Google. It's crucial to make sure that you have good Google reviews, and make sure that when somebody has a negative review, you're more than welcome to Google SSLR. I think we have 2 very negative reviews. The one is actually more a brag than anything else. It's a tenant that we've evicted, and the attorney from our side was really on this guy constantly, trying to get him to settle, to vacate the premises, so we don't have to go the whole eviction route. Obviously, legally, it's a simple settlement proposal that we were trying to negotiate, and he got very upset with that. And he said we were a little much on the communication. And I think for every landlord looking for a firm to handle an eviction, it's probably a better review than somebody saying, whatever, I've received good service. I'm very proud to also say, and I think this is something very important for you to be aware of, we do have a lot of people that are firm evicted, so we only act on behalf of landlords. A lot of people that we've evicted that return to us, and this is a very important one, that return to us as clients at a later stage or refer matters to us. How on earth do you get that done? That's through kindness and care. And the fact that you're enforcing your client's right doesn't mean you need to rip the other party apart. Very important for us as legal practitioners. As much as we are opponents in some instances, we are colleagues first and foremost. If one of you have an eviction and you don't do evictions, this conversation's going to stick with you, and you're going to say, you know what, when my client asked me about an eviction, you're going to say, what's that girl's name? She talks a lot. She had pigs when she was little. SSLR is the firm, Silna, Stain, something. You're going to Google the firm and you're going to refer the client to me. If I know one of you are practicing a specific kind of law, obviously we refer to one another, but you won't refer to an opponent that treated you uncollegially and unprofessionally. I see that so many times. So personally, I'm very much on the practicing role, but I manage the firm and I do trainings for estate agents most of the time, so I don't actually have my own active files. But I do see it from the attorney's side. Uncollegial, I almost want to say unethical actions from other attorneys, and it's disgusting. I was recently in court again with one of my candidate attorneys' admissions, and to take that oath and an oath to say, or confirmation to say that you would act professionally and in a way that promotes justice, to sort of undermine your opponent and sneak in stuff in a way in litigation where you're not playing the game fairly, is not a way to run a sustainable business. To win a case is not building a business. Yes, to win a case justly and equitably, yes, fantastic. That's part of the job you're doing. But to run a business, to run a firm ethically, is going to give you many more miles than to just win cases. Clients don't know if you won cases, but your opponents, I promise you, know how you win a case and now how you practice law. And that carries a lot more weight than just simply winning cases. Then what we need to talk about is most firms become so reliant on the business owner that the moment something happens to you, the entire thing falls apart. This is crucial. So here's a little fun story. Like I said, I was 24 when I started the firm. That was 2008. And 5 years from then, in 2013, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Now, this is a normal chair, and I can get up and jump and do cartwheels for you, which I'm very grateful for. I'm very healthy, and I am not on any medication, but I was very sick. The reason for my health is discipline and a very nice story about beautiful blessings in my life, which I'm very, very grateful for. But I live a very disciplined life because of that. Why I'm telling this story is 5-year-old firm. I have multiple sclerosis. I have 2 little kids. And remember, ladies on the call, we take maternity leave sort of on the run when we have our own firms. And I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, 1-year-old and a 3-year-old when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I realized, oh my goodness, this is an absolute disaster. To lose your mobility as a legal practitioner, by the way, this is definitely something we need to talk about, is accessibility at court, but we don't have enough time on this particular webinar for that. And I realized I'm going to be in hospital. I am going to be most likely wheelchair, bound to a wheelchair in about 5 years from there. Again, I'm not, and I'm very happy and healthy, and no reason for me to be worried about my mobility anymore. But at the time, it was very real. It was a very real risk for me to not be able to practice law the way I intended. Obviously, I can still practice law. Multiple sclerosis is luckily a mobility sort of issue. But it does a few fun things. I mean, you can lose your eyesight quite impressively. Slurred speech and stuff like that is very real. And it's definitely an issue for a legal practitioner. And that made me realize, oh my goodness, if my business is this reliant on me, and I need to go to hospital, and I did. I used to go to hospital about every 8 months or so for high dosage of cortisone. I was injecting interferon weekly, and that made me sick, got me down basically for a day a week. Okay, so you see what I'm saying here. If you only have like 5 days in a week to run the law thing and you are out for one, it leaves you with a limited amount of days available. And that gave me a very real realization of how important it is to not have your business be reliant on you. So let's get very real with each other. Again, forgive me for my realness, or it's a pleasure. As long as your firm is your baby, and I'm so grateful, I am sitting on the other side of the screen and you can't throw me with tomatoes or stuff. As long as you see your firm as your child or a baby, and I hear people say that, and I was there, I was very much there, you don't have the ability to step away and look at your firm critically and in the way you should be looking at it. And that's a very, very scary place to be, because if you think of your firm as you do of a child or an extension of yourself in a way, you can't separate yourself from it. And as long as you can't separate yourself from your business, you have a massive problem. Because what if something happens to you? Yes, we have beautiful insurance. We have amazing business continuation insurance and whatnot, and dread disease. Unfortunately, I already had signs of MS at 24, so I didn't even have dread disease insurance for MS specifically. And I look at things that happen. My sister was recently diagnosed with breast cancer, and she is potentially one of the most healthy people I know. Luckily, she's doing fantastic. She just had her last chemo, so it's a good story. But still, having cancer takes you out of your firm for at least 6 solid months, and then for another about 6 months, it's a bit of an up and down situation. A chronic illness like multiple sclerosis, like lupus, whatever else, takes you out of your business. Now, the problem is, if you are your business and you're not in your business, you have a massive problem. So we need to think about, how do we extract ourselves out of our businesses? And it's difficult. And yeah, I do need to talk about ego, because you start your firm and the first 3 years are so bumpy. You wonder if you're going to survive it. And when you do start surviving it, you get a bit of a, look at this. This is a beautiful firm and I'm so proud of it. And it is all me. It even has my name on the door. Just stop quickly and think about the continuation of your business. SSLR, actually, after the name Steyn Leroux, I'm the only named partner from that particular crowd that is still an active director of the firm. None of the other guys are still in the firm, and they haven't been for, it's good 4 or 5 years now already. And my other partner, we equal shareholders, Nicholas Brody and I. His name doesn't even come close to the name, because SSLR is a brand, and that's the way we look at it. The fact that my surname is also on the name doesn't really affect me at all. And to be honest, if I could change it to something that doesn't jump off the tongue so difficult like SSLR, if you try and say that on the phone, people always wonder, do you have a bit of a stutter, or what's happening here with the double S situation? And so, not mocking my own firm, but you get what I'm saying on firm names. If you are so stuck on you and you representing the firm, what happens if you're not there? Also, when you are the only name, if you are the only person that makes the decisions in your business, also creates a bit of a scary space, because what happens when you are not there? What happens when you can't make those decisions? And what happens when you're not always the best person to make the decisions? I have been the managing director of my firm now. This is my 8th year as the managing director, and I can feel that my days in the MD seat is coming to an end, and I find it very exciting. I have other ventures that I do want to go into. I will always stay actively involved in my firm, but you also need to come to a place where you realize, to be an MD or a director of a business for 7, max 10 years, in my personal opinion, might actually be a bit of a growth limiting thing. Now, depends on what you're doing. And this is why we need to start with our why. Why are you doing what you are doing? If you have your firm simply to not be employed by another lawyer and you are cool with yourself being your own boss, fantastic. That's great. And then it's fantastic if you just replace your salary with yourself as your own boss. You're basically just doing a boss replacement, which is fantastic. You do that. If your why is something much bigger, my why for SSLR is actually to run a rental and eviction firm to the point where it can impact, and it does, and I'm very happy to see that, the rental industry in South Africa to a point where, and I kid you not, this is actually a very real dream that I have, and I do believe I'm going to reach my dream, to get rid of the housing problem in South Africa before I leave this earth. This is my dream, and I think that's why I work extremely hard, and also part of why I need to sometimes take a bit of a step out of my own firm to get involved with things like recently even a bit of politics, the NPPC, the certain parts of government, to really get down to how do we fix our housing crisis. It's not okay that people in our country live in shacks. And I don't say that as an eviction attorney. I don't mean people shouldn't be squatting. People shouldn't be forced to live in shacks or on the street because we can't supply housing to our people. This is my why, and I think you can see the passion in my why. And this is why it's easy for me to pivot around in my firm and see what actually makes it work to get to a point where I can change the environment around me, not just have a revenue generating firm. So I saw a question, and I think it's a very, very valid question. What's the situation around rebranding, and what's my opinion on rebranding? So if you do change the name, it depends on where you are. So for us, SSL are established in the rental market. If we now suddenly change it to, okay, it's actually, now that I think about it, a pretty funny name, because Nick's surname is Brody, and then I sit with an S. We can work around a B as well as an S there, or an S and a B. But to rebrand and suddenly move away from our abbreviation SSLR, and the estate agents in this country will simply not understand who on earth we are. If I'm actively still involved and you rebrand, it's not a crisis. If you are very well known, so if your brand weighs a little heavier than your firm's brand, then you can rebrand. Rebranding is a very special, I just said special. I like my Freudian slip, so I'm just going to stick with special. It's a very specific decision, and it should be a very subjective decision on the one hand, but it must be objective. You need to be able to look at your firm from the outside. If you believe that you have a very big, very well-known firm, rather get somebody in to do a bit of a brand recognition exercise for you. Let them go out, ask a few people if the name rings a bell. If it doesn't ring a bell in the industry that you are playing in, you can rebrand and change the name or the branding as much as you want without causing any harm. If your brand has strong brand recognition, especially name recognition, avoid that. If you have logo recognition, and that's usually what I recommend where you want to go to. If you have logo recognition, this little, I think you can see on the bottom of the slide next to SSLR, that little orange house. And so that's our logo that we've been using for 5 years now. That logo got pretty good brand recognition. I'm actually currently busy with a rebranding exercise, not renaming exercise, rebranding. I'm just slimming up the look and the feel of the brand a little bit, not me, obviously, with amazing graphic designers. I'm very pro rebranding. I'm pro about every 5 years or so to freshen up your brand, especially lawyers. Yella, I have seen the firms with branding that I think, Yella, somebody still did that in, and I don't mean to be nasty here, but someone probably still did that in the Microsoft Paint. It's okay to rebrand. It's okay to change the look, but to change your name, you should be very careful. If you have brand recognition in your name, be careful to change it. Try to pivot around your logo and try to keep your logo as a standout something, which would make it safer for you to change the actual name. Think about your brand. Think about what it means. So the brands I actually follow, and I'm very happy to tell this story, the brands that I follow are typically Lego, Crayola. So it's fun, lacquer, light brands. And how did I get to that for law? Because I want to be outside of the box. We always do think outside of the box. I think here behind me, you can see this lion and the dancer. Those are our two core values. So Heart of a Lion, being very proudly African, and then also being brave, being candid, being respectful, and then obviously being passionate about what we do. So think about things like that, where you can bring your core values into your branding as well. It's part of the story. And if you have a few specific points in your branding that would remain constant, you can pivot around branding. Be careful. Be careful of changing names every time we change directors. Why I say that is not just being careful of having your clients lose focus on the specific brand. Be careful of linking a name to your firm too tightly for exactly my MS story or any other story. If you are the company, something happens to you, obviously something very bad happens to the company. And it also, again, sorry for all the toes I might be stepping on, so just, put on your steel-tip boots before I say this sentence. Also be careful of having a view to public where it looks like you might not have stability in your management. I think all of us went through a few exciting things during COVID days. We had a massive change in directorship in that particular stage, and it was nice. That sort of happened behind the scenes, not client facing. If your name change every time there's a change in directors or partners, it does have the potential of creating a risk where your clients feel like, oh my goodness, the moment I get this firm's name, it changes because the surname gets added. And obviously be careful of having a name as long as a paragraph where nobody can remember who's where. And anyway, at this stage, it's a bit of a trend to go to abbreviations, but then also it loses sort of focus. I mean, we can name all the firms with the abbreviations, and people would say things like, have you ever worked? My friend is with a firm, and then it's like 5 random letters. And I'm like, no, I have no idea who you're talking about. And when I actually hear the firm's full name, I'm like, oh, yes, I actually know who you're talking about. So I don't know if that helps you at all. And so I want to jump into this quickly, and then, no, I think we still have a bit of time to go before we take a break. We do go for another about 10 minutes, then we can take a quick fill up your coffee mugs, situation. All right. So what is your goal in positioning and propelling your firm in 2023? Again, stop and think. I once, this was actually for LSSA, now that I think about it, we were working around a cause for entrepreneurship. And this was actually, I think most of you will remember the 2017 and before that CEO of LSSA, Nick Swart. And I still miss him so much. Nick was an absolutely fantastic guy. He passed away in 2017, and I think the industry lost an absolute giant physically, but also in the way his way of thinking. And Nick actually intended to put an entrepreneurship course together, so that was very cool. I was one of the attorneys. Then also a few of my good friends. Ben Groot is actually a direct competition in my eviction camp as well, but we're very good friends. And Jane Apasami, a few very creative people and very good entrepreneurs in our specific field, in lawyering. And one of them, Jane, specifically said, remember, what you want to do is you want to be able to get off the dance floor and get onto the balcony. And that since she said that, that's something that I think about very often. When you're in your firm and you're busy doing your lawyering thing, you're busy with all your on-the-go day-to-day things that you are doing, everything from remember to do your trust audit, to its financial year end, to the receptionist is going on maternity leave, to, whatever. You have so many things happening in your life. Remember to stop and get off the dance floor, get on the balcony. So picture your firm as a dance floor, and picture how while you're on the dance floor, you don't know who else is there. You don't know, you know, what's happening really. Get off the dance floor, get onto the balcony and look at your firm as an outsider, and be careful to leave your ego on the dance floor when you go onto the balcony. You need to be able to be completely open and honest with yourself, completely vulnerable. It's not pleasant, guys. We work so hard and we put our life and our souls into our firms. To look at this thing and to really think, actually, it's not as awesome as I would like it to be. It's okay. It's really okay. It's usually never as awesome as you would like it to be. And that's exactly what I think it should be like. That forces us to go bigger and to build onto it. But be vulnerable, be candid with yourself as well, and really see if you are where you should be and what you should be. So you can be competitive. But be competitive, but be collegial. Some of my absolute best friends, I just mentioned Ben Groot, Bruno Samal, they are Greg Vermaak. Greg Vermaak was actually the attorney of record on Blue Moonlight Properties. So you guys at all in evictions would immediately realize, obviously, he's a massive competitor for my firm. So is Bruno, so is Ben. Some of my best friends, and like, I mean best friends, like we bride together, are direct competitors to me. And I would never, ever, ever say anything bad to any one of my competitors, about any one of my competitors. To them, if I have a client, for instance, coming to me from one of them, or one of my clients going to one of them, we will pick up the phone and say, listen, Bruno will call me and say, Silna, you know what, I saw this matter, a client came to me. It seems like your attorney just didn't communicate enough, or, you know, whatever, but our drafting, we would call each other directly and say, listen, I got this client, I think maybe you made a mistake here, or whatever the case might be. Let me help you to fix it, and I will never say anything bad about you in public, because what happened to lawyers, and let's be honest about this one, lawyers for some reason fell into the trap of bashing one another. And that's actually so sad, because we were supposed to be the profession that is, we should be the leaders of justice and equity. We should be the leaders of ethics. But when you hear the jokes, what are the jokes about? Not about our ethics. And that's sad. That breaks my heart, because that is how we act towards one another and what we say about one another publicly. But it makes it difficult for all of us to practice, because if I say something horrible about one of you guys publicly, it reflects bad on the entire profession. I am not saying don't be a whistleblower. I'm the queen of whistleblower. And when it comes to attorneys practicing in a way where I think, you're coloring very far outside of the lines here, or outside at all. I'm one of the first attorneys who would actually report a colleague to the LPC, or the Cape Legal Practice Council, where I'm a member as well. And the reason for this is not to try and close my opponent down, not at all, or my competition down, not at all. It's trying to build our profession back up to where it should be and what it really is. Because the truth is, all of us in this conversation are those people who care enough about our businesses to actually spend the day before financial year in a conversation around our businesses. You are not the people that are bashing and causing harm to the profession. We are the people that's actually trying to make a business in a profession, but the requirement for our businesses to work is actually for this profession to work. So very important, be competitive. Be different. And if you are very good friends with your competitors, even the better, because you want to be friends with people that would push you to be better. If I look at the things that Bruno does, I'm thinking, okay, I need to up my game to stay up with it, to keep on competing with him. And he does the same. And we'll talk to each other. We'll tell each other in advance what we're planning and what we're doing in our businesses. And sometimes it gives you a bit of a wake-up call to realize, oh my goodness, that one is far ahead of me with the technology they are using. Talk about the systems that you are using. We don't need to live in the world of, everything should be on paper. We specifically, SSLR, we use Ghost Practice. I actually used another, and I won't say who it is, even if you ask me, another practice management system, and it was dismal. It ended up costing me 2 million rand. That was not a pleasant migration. And then I had to pick up the phone to Ghost Practice again and say, hello, yellow, skis man. That effort that we put into migrate, can we please migrate back to you guys? It's like that girlfriend that has to call again and say, actually, you were a fantastic guy. Not just promoting Ghost Practice, not at all. I'm saying, look at the systems. Yes, it's expensive. And these things are massively expensive, but how much does it save you? Ghost Practice ends up costing me about as much as one eviction. So that makes a lot of sense for me. It doesn't really harm cash flow that much, but you feel it, you know about it. I can use a much cheaper system, but I won't achieve the goal. My accounting and my billing is sitting in one system. It's easier for me to manage and navigate around. But for you, it might be something else. Look at what the other guys are using. If you're still billing in Excel, fantastic. If that works for you, just make sure that that actually gives you the advantage to claim the VAT that you should be claiming. Look at how much your audit's costing you. If you're not using a system like that, be creative and be competitive. Be creative around the law that you are practicing. Just because you're comfortable in one specific part of the law doesn't mean that's the part of law you should be sticking to forever and a day. It might mean that there are elements around that part of law, about that service offering that you're doing, that you might want to expand to. Never expand without having capacity. Guys, I cannot stress this one enough. If you are doing one thing and if you add a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you are going to write double the fees that you're doing. Just keep in mind who's going to be writing those fees. I have a very, very, very good relationship with my business partner. At this stage, we're only 2 directors in the firm, and it makes it quite easy for us. We were 5 just before COVID, and just being the 2 of us at this stage is very pleasant. But it's mostly because we came through COVID together. It's I think one of those things that tests relationships between business partners, and this one works out very well. And Nick is a very very conservative guy, and I am the dreamer. I'm the crazy one with the crazy ideas, and I will come in with the most bizarre, crazy, creative ideas around new things that we can do or ways we can change the firm. And Nick would say, Silna, it's fabulous what you're saying. Just quickly, that money that we're going to need to do that, how do you anticipate us getting that? Where do you think that's going to come from? And it brings you back into thinking. But if you're alone, be that person for yourself. If you know you're a creative entrepreneur, and if you have the joy of having ADD, which you might very well have if you're a business owner, know about it and know to stop and think every question through before you just make a decision in excitement. Make the decisions when you're excited. Do the things that excites you, but make sure you don't accidentally kill your business in the process. All right. I do still want to talk about creativity and then specializing and how you decide to specialize and why you would do that. I do think we need to take a very quick break. You guys can quickly forward all your emails to your assistants. And I think it is now 25 minutes past 11. Luckily, we're virtual, so there is absolutely no queues at the bathroom. So we will start again at 11:31, just for everybody to get back to their computers. All right, everybody, we are back and ready for action again. All right, there we go. So I hope your coffee is back up and filled up again, and you are ready for the next part. All right, so we were talking about creativity just before the break, and what does creativity look like? Why should we be creative? And in law, is creativity the most important thing? And yes, it is. So as much as it is important in the way that we practice law, it's very important in the way we run our businesses. To not be creative in business as an attorney or an advocate is extremely risky. Why I say that is we can't practice law the way our forefathers did. We can't practice law the way that even as recently as in the 2000s, the way that my principals, for instance, practiced when I did my articles, 16, 17 years ago. We can't practice in that way anymore because law doesn't look the same and our clients doesn't look the same. If I look at my typical client, and a slightly more experienced person, so somebody that's slightly older, somebody that's already had like 30, 40 years experience in as an adult, it looks different from somebody where you are the first attorney that they're actually using and they're like, oh my goodness, so excited and so scared at the same time. It looks different and your client expects different things from you, but we need to be able to provide the same service to all of them. So you need to be creative in the way you're practicing, but also be creative in the way you're applying the law. By creative application of the law, I don't mean coloring outside of the lines. I mean thinking about what we're doing. We, for instance, I'll use an example. Let me talk a bit of law here. I'll use the example of the landlord's hypothec. So for a very long time, whether you're practicing in property or not, just bear with me for this one. For a very long time, there's been this simple understanding that the landlord's hypothec can only be applied to outstanding rental and nothing else. So no utilities, nothing else. And at some stage last year, I said to my team, guys, let's just quickly look at this. Where are we getting this? Why do we believe that is the case? And we actually found the case where this was decided, and it was actually a case from 1860 something. And it was the most bizarre thing because in that particular case, the judge said it sort of inferred that the hypothec only applies to rentals. Now, there was obviously a lot of case law, and please don't take this as a webinar on the landlord's hypothec. But if you look at the further case law, it's almost like that part of the conversation was never ever discussed again. And it was sort of a comment in passing and everybody grabbed onto it. The same goes for instance, utility disconnection in a rental property. For a long time, we relied on this one case where one judge said internet can't be seen as incidental to occupation as the case would be with electricity. And everybody was stuck on that case. And from there on, even me in previous trainings for LSSA specifically, for a very long time, I said this is how we can show that the mandement of Spulle would be the correct remedy to follow when you have a utility disconnection in a rental property. And then the next moment, Eskom versus Masinda came out in 2019, rocked everybody's boat, changed the position, but it didn't really change the position. It took one firm to stop and think and change their pleadings, change the head of argument, and change the entire law. As lawyers, we need to be creative. As lawyers, we need to develop the law. I was in a meeting this morning about the expropriation bill, and looking at new legislation coming in, and you're thinking, okay, but let's consider all the options. How would we have to approach a court to position this to actually achieve the goal that we want to achieve? We need to be creative. We can't practice law that comes from all the way back when and to the Roman Dutch lawyers. But we need to be the generation that creates a South African legal system. We're the generation of lawyers that need to reframe Ubuntu in a way where Ubuntu isn't seen as this weird thing that people just use for marketing purposes, or they just use throwing the term Ubuntu around when they have nothing else to say. We need to really change our law into a proper South African legal system that fits in with Africa, that is African law, that is part of what we should be driving forward. We can't look at the guys like Foot and Groot and all those jurist, absolute heavyweights, and we all just apply what they say. It's our job to be those guys for just this generation. We need to be the lawyers that shape South African law. We can't be the guys, I'm sorry, and now I might be on everybody's toes, but bear with me. It's totally worth it. We can't be the guys that's complaining about our government. We can't be the guys saying on social media, oh, South Africa is such a mess. You don't have the luxury of doing that because you took an oath and you promised the opposite. You promised, and you swore or confirmed loyalty to this republic. If you were in court and you were admitted, you can go back to your oath and see that's actually what you did. If you swore loyalty to this republic, your job as a legal practitioner is to shape the law and to actually be the custodians. We are the custodians of justice and equity. And we are the people that are supposed to shape things in a way that works again. So we don't have the luxury of moaning, is basically what I'm saying. We don't have the luxury as the legal practitioners of this country to sit back and say, no, you know what, the legal system's completely broken. I can't find, if you publicly say, you just can't find court files anymore, or you say to your client, you know what, we can try this, but the sheriff's just not doing their job, or you know what, we can try and push it through court, but it depends on the judge that we're drawing for the day, or you know what, magistrates just don't apply the law they should. If you're saying that, you need to stop and you need to find unique and creative ways of changing the position. It's our job as legal practitioners to change the things we don't like, because we actually do have the power to do that. When last have you commented on legislation? When last have you been on gov.za's website and actually saw which pieces of legislations open for commentary? I can say this because I am a proud participant in our democracy. I comment on legislation, obviously, when it comes to rental housing things and expropriation, so property kind of stuff, but that's my job. But as a citizen, I do comment on the Electoral Commission's Act's suggested amendments. I do that not because I'm a legal practitioner, but because I'm a citizen, and I'm a proud citizen of this country. And I am very happy that we live in a democratic country. Most people don't understand how to comment on legislation. They read it and they're like, huh? What are they trying to say? We lawyers, we understand what's happening, and we have an obligation to shape our law, but we have an obligation to participate in our democracy. We have an obligation to be the tone setters of what a good citizen looks like. Because remember, people look at us. It doesn't matter. They can make all the jokes about the sharks and the whatever. We've heard all the lawyer jokes. I think we've heard that ad nauseum. But we are the people look to. If they say, you know what, I have a friend that's an attorney, they have their own firm. That's usually how you know other people look at you like next level. So they have their own firm and they never vote, or they actually told me that this Expropriation Act is going to cause problems. Think about what we're doing. Think about what our obligation is and think about what it means for your firm. If you go out publicly, you're now going on a rant on social media, whichever platform you choose for your generation, and you go on a complete rant. You either do a video or you type or whatever, you go on a rant about South Africa. What does that say to your clients? Does that say to your clients, oh, this is the kind of lawyer that I trust? This is somebody that can think outside of the box? Or are you saying things that everybody is saying? And are you saying, if the chips, doesn't lay in my favor, I can't play the game? What are you saying? Look at the way you communicate to your clients and your potential clients. Really important. When and how do you decide to specialize? And that's a very tricky one. It depends on your industry. I took a massive leap of faith in specializing in evictions. That work out very well. I must say, if I look at all sorts of branding strategies, there isn't a lot of brands, and quickly think about your top 5 favorite brands. There isn't a lot of brands that come out and do a lot of things. What I mean by this is, if you want to buy a computer, a specific computer, okay, you're not going to go out to somebody that sells a little bit of everything. Takealot's fantastic. And Takealot is a brand that deals with a lot, like a lot, wide variety, a lot of things. But if you want to go to somebody that's an expert in the field and you say, you know what, this is the needs I have for the computers in my firm. I need them to be fast enough. Don't want it by arms and legs. I don't really need amazing graphic cards. At the best of times we do, we use Word. This is the most exciting thing. Sometimes for an attorney, it gets very exciting and we go onto PowerPoint. That's about as wild as it gets for a lawyer. So I don't need much. You're not going to go and Takealot because you can read all the reviews you want. You're still not going to understand what it is. You want to go to somebody that's going to understand what your specific, they're going to hear your needs, they're going to interpret it and translate it to something useful for you. So very important on this is to specialize. Don't specialize for the sake of specialization. Read your market. My head office is in Johannesburg. I have another office in Cape Town and opening an office soon in Pretoria. When I open my offices, I know exactly where I am. I know I'm in an industry which is pretty online. We do evictions in every single town in this country, and it's easy enough to get a correspondent to do an appearance in, even in Kuruman or wherever you want to be. And we drive the majority of our work out of our Joburg office. Easy enough. If you're running a kind of firm that requires your personal presence, if what you're doing is you're doing face-to-face negotiations for mergers and acquisitions on a smaller scale than the big guys, you probably need to be there. So is it financially viable to travel that much? How will that influence your price? And is it worth really specializing to that extent? At the same token, if you are in a city like Joburg, where we have very specialized firms, if you come in a part of Joburg where you're a general practitioner, will that actually work for you? Will that work for your firm? The fact that you can do everything and anything, fantastic. But will it work for you? For some people, it works pretty well. And it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to build a massive firm, probably that won't necessarily work for you. If your goal is to have a very small little boutique niche firm where you do have a general practice, and I just use niche and general practice in the same sentence, just hear me out. If you know the kind of general practice work that you're doing is you're coming in and you're really that hand holder for your client, and you're doing everything from absolutely, from the ANC straight through to their first property. You're doing that transfer, and you're doing the will, and everything, and you're basically this family attorney. Maybe that works for you, because maybe people in Joburg would just like somebody that actually knows them, and actually just when they pick up the phone, they know exactly who you are. Maybe it works for you. How you market and how you position the firm is going to be the difference between will that work for you or won't that work for you. The difference between will it work and won't it work isn't about what works for the other guys. It's about what you're doing. Your passion will always lead you to your success. I can promise you, in the wise words of Richard Branson, have fun and the money will come. So don't specialize in a part of law that you hate. I mean, if I have to specialize the one part of law, and respect to you guys that does it, family law, I can't. I've done one divorce in my entire life. Well, and then also my own, but I didn't do my own divorce. But I mean, that was a pleasant divorce. But I've only done one divorce. I hated it, like representing somebody else. I really didn't enjoy that. I don't enjoy that part of the law. It doesn't work for me. Fantastic that people do that, but I don't like it. I enjoy housing. I enjoy evictions. I enjoy rentals. That works for me. I can specialize in that. So definitely don't specialize in something that you don't like. Should you be an expert in the field when you start? The simple answer is I really wasn't. Okay, so let's just say I'm so happy we're recording this one, because this is a confession 13 years later. But I think you guys know it. I did a few evictions, got it right, but I was very young. I was, how old was I? I was about 28. Yeah, 27, 28. And I got a few evictions right. It was in the time where everybody was a little iffy on how to do an eviction. Absolute stroke of luck, got a few right. And that made me understand how it works. So I've always been a very practical attorney, never a very theoretical person ever. So I got it right. And that's actually how I met Nick Swart. Nick said, well, you're a fun presenter. I have a way of communicating things practically. So come, you're going to have fun. And I was so nervous presenting my first seminars and stuff on evictions, because I was so scared that somebody's going to ask me a question. The joy is 13 years later, I'm really not scared of any question on rentals or evictions. I think I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and the extremely weird. And now I am an expert. But was I an expert when I started specializing in evictions? I think I was very far from it. I think I had a good grasp on what I was doing. I think an eviction still at the time took us about 4 to 6 months, where now we got our residential evictions down to 6 to 8 weeks. And that's basically the shortest time period you can do it in compliance with PI still, and with the courts in mind. So whether you have to be an absolute expert on the field before you specialize, I think the answer is no. The answer is you should be willing to learn. And your answer is you should be open with your clients. You shouldn't tell your client that you're an expert on the field. Just because you specialize in something doesn't mean you're an expert in the field. Specializing and expertise, the one comes after the other. I promise you, every day of the week, if you specialize in something, it means you're going to reach your 10,000 hour mark on that particular subject much quicker than the guy next to you. And I promise you, you're going to be an expert in the field. But you wait to be an expert in a field before you start specializing in a specific kind of law. I don't think it's necessary. If I get, completely ridiculed for this one, I'm okay with that, because I think that's sort of the problem very often when it comes to practicing law. People want to be perfect rather than getting it done. To do the perfect eviction, I think still to this day, if you look at the evictions we're doing, even at the best of times, we can do things better, and that's what we want to do. I recently read a few of our pleadings. I have a fantastic legal manager that's looking after our residential evictions. I read our pleadings and I thought, oh, this is absolutely gorgeous. I obviously stop and have a look at our pleadings every now and again. And then I think, wow, it's 17 times better than what it was 14 years ago when I started doing evictions, and it's definitely much better 10 years down the line in specialization. So to specialize, it must be a passion. If it's not a passion, you're going to burn out and it's going to be horrible. If you're not an expert in the field, don't stress. Specialization will push you into expertise at a much quicker rate. Just be ready to hold on very tight, because if you push into specialization, you're stepping on people's toes. There will always already be people in a market, even in relatively new parts of the law, even in parts of the law where you don't think there will be specialists already. There will be a few people that deem themselves to be specialists. You're going to get critique, but I mean, that's part of the game, and that's the joy. Have a way of finding our way in critique. So specializing, good or bad, depending on your area, and follow your gut on that. All right. So, few important questions here. Why do we need to build our firms into being a valuable asset? Looking for something, and you are building a business, and it's not sellable, it's not a thing. What I mean by this is, if your firm isn't something that somebody else would buy, you are just a very unpleasant boss to yourself. I'm saying unpleasant because you're stuck with yourself every single moment of the day. And unlike other people who can actually leave this office and they are done with you for the day, you are stuck with you. And as much as the other people can sort of re-diarize that file and he ends up on the bottom of the pile and he will deal with that problem later, you know what your cash flow looks like. You know what your marketing looks like. You know what your instructions look like. And you can't leave that in the office. I am not a big, I don't subscribe to the notion that we need to separate our personal lives from our businesses. I think it opens the door for a lot of risky things where you sort of start living compartmentalized. I've done that. It wasn't pleasant, really backfired on me so hard. I believe in a holistic approach. So I'm a mother of two, and who's turning 11 and 13, so pre-teen years, really loving it. Going to high school next year, the first one. So we're busy with high school shopping and all those things. And I'm really loving it. I actually don't have an au pair or anything. So as busy as I am with all the different things that I'm busy with, I take my kids to school in the morning, I fetch them in the afternoon, and I actually run everything, like the mum thing, and being a good girlfriend at the same time, and a good mother, and running the firm all at the same time. And I think if I had to compartmentalize, for me personally, it wouldn't have worked. I've done that, like I said, and it didn't work for me. There is no shame, mothers or dads, and if you're a dad and this applies to you, kudos to you. And if you're a mum and it applies to you, amazingly, kudos to you as well. If you at home in the afternoon and you need to do a few meetings, you need to dictate a few things, and your kids are there, and every now and then they come to you and they say, how do I spell this word, or what does those crazy tenses in the English language work? I think we all apply it, and then in real life, when we have to say what's continuous indefinite tense and our kids ask us, we think, am I not supposed to be a lawyer? I'm supposed to know this answer. And then it goes straight over you. You're balancing all these things, and it's important. It's okay to balance things, and it's okay to drop a few balls. Just make sure the balls that you drop are the balls that can actually be recovered again. I heard a story with a guy, so I actually think it was the CEO of Coca-Cola, that said, I'm under correction on that, but that said, you have rubber balls and you have glass balls. So the rubber balls drop and they bounce back, or they lie there, but you can pick it up and really no harm. But you have glass balls, and if they drop, they're broken and you can't fix that. So what does that look like? If you balance a lot of things, you're balancing your firm, your family, your friendships, your whatever, maybe a few other businesses, whatever. Just make sure the things that you drop can be picked up. Relationships have a way of not being picked up again. You only have that much time with your children before they leave school, and you want to invest enough in your relationship with them to create healthy, full-rounded adults. That's our jobs as parents. At the same time, if you have candidate attorneys registered under you guys, I cannot stress this enough. It's not, your candidate attorney is not a low-cost employee, and no person should ever be treated like this, but bear with me in this one. You don't have a candidate attorney because they are cheap and it's a disposable thing. You have an obligation as a principal to turn that student, that newly fresh out of varsity person with a brain full of knowledge, into an attorney. It's a massive obligation. But now you have all these bills. You can't drop certain of them. Once you break a candidate attorney spirit, you take a potential legal practitioner out of the game that's going to hate law forever and ever, and maybe they were a fantastic part of the game. Or on the other hand, if you see you have a candidate attorney that's really not going to meet the requirements, you can't just say to the court, okay, I'm happy with this one to get admitted, because you don't want to hurt his feelings. It's our job as principals to create good attorneys to come into the profession after us. It's and with us. It's really important. You need to take that job very, very seriously. But then again, if you don't focus enough on your health, if you work 13 hours a day and you don't take that hour for exercise and meditation and whatever your thing is, to really just, stay inside your body and actually keep yourself mentally healthy and physically healthy, that's a ball, that's a glass ball that's going to break. And once you're lying there in hospital and you have something that's now either incurable or a long-term issue or whatever, that ball dropped now and it broke. So think about what you can juggle with and what you shouldn't be juggling with. It's really important. So building something that you would buy means you need to look at this. If you look at somebody else's firm, quickly picture 3 or 4 of the firms that you've recently seen. Would you buy that? Does it look like a pleasant thing to have? Do you look at the owner of the business and you think, I swear, if somebody gives this to me for free, I would rather just run and really not take it. If your firm looks like that, is that something good to have? If you are working 13, 14-hour days and still everybody in your firm looks miserable, your employees look like, because you are so on edge, every time somebody makes a tiny mistake, you fly off and you throw phones around and you just see dictaphones going, it means you're a little overstressed. I suggest take a step back and whoa quickly on that one. Nobody would want to buy something like that. Whether you're planning to sell your firm or not is irrelevant in this conversation. Why I say that is, to build something without value means nothing. It just means now you're working very hard for somebody that's pushing you very hard, and I promise you, you're not getting paid nearly enough for breaking yourself to that level. So stop and think. Think if you would buy it, and be very open and candid about that answer. Once again, if you are your firm completely, it's not a sellable asset. You need to be able to separate yourself out of the firm to actually make it a sellable asset. Ethics, ethics, ethics. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. It breaks my heart, and I've said this a few times, it breaks my heart to see people that are supposed to be the custodians of our law, of justice and equity, doing things that they are doing, trading out of trust accounts. And I'm thinking, okay, how do you pass that trust audit? I've obviously been through, going for my 16th audit now, very happy to report I've never had an issue, because my trust account It's not your account. It's like a very separate thing. And I'm not an accounting person, which is probably why I play it much safer than everybody else. Like you keep it very separate, your business account and your trust account. But even your business account, if you have partners, to shave a little bit off here and there isn't ethical business, and no business that's being run on a, I'll color a little outside of the line on this one, and we'll deal with that in future, is going to be a sustainable thing. Again, think about what you would buy. Look at your own balance sheet, look at your own income statement, and definitely look at your own trust report. Would you buy that? If you have to advise a client and you need to do due diligence for a client, evaluate your own business like that. Look at it long and hard and really critically. If it's not something you would buy, think about why not. Why wouldn't you buy this? Where would you have to change it? And do you want to change it? If it looks like, oh, this is going to be a lot of effort to fix, and I don't actually feel like it, maybe then it's time to let that particular business go. I have been in businesses. Luckily, I've never been in a situation where I had to let a business go for they didn't work reasons, but just because it's not as viable as I would have liked it to be, you have to cut it, which is again why I'm saying don't think about a business as you would of a child, because sometimes you do need to let a business go. If your firm is currently something that you're thinking, not really what I have in mind, I need to change these 3 things, and I'm actually willing to do it. I'm willing to put in the effort. I'm willing to be critical, and I'm willing to be open to critique. I'm willing to be vulnerable, and I'm willing to set my ego aside, because I thought about why I have a business, and I actually realized the reason why I have this business is X, whatever your reason is. My reason for starting the firm initially was job creation. I hated the fact that most people work in companies where they actually hate their jobs. I'm not really enjoying looking at people hating their jobs. So I thought, you know what, at least for the 30 people I employ, I want to make sure they actually enjoy their jobs. They actually enjoy working with me and with other people in the firm. It's the same, and it's a safe and sustainable environment. That was my initial reason. That was my initial why. Later, my why changed into something much bigger. I mentioned the housing situation in South Africa, but also my why includes my children, most definitely. Not actually the financial element of the why, but more I want to show my kids. I have a boy and a girl. I want to show my kids what you can do, what can be done. I'm not a feminist in any way, but hear me clearly on this one. If you look at what I do, you would probably suspect that. And by feminist, I mean I am very much a difference feminist. I do believe men and women do have different strengths and different skills, but we are very much entitled to the same rights. So that's what I mean. I don't want to have the strength or the power of a man. I actually do. I'm jealous. I'm jealous of how strong men are. But I do appreciate that I have, as a woman, I do have a natural caring element, and I have a way of bringing people together, because in fairness, way back when my gender was supposed to go and round the ladies up to go and collect berries. So I'm very happy with the role that I have and the strengths that I have. So I do want to show my kids that it's not about gender, it's not about race, it's not about anything. It's about thinking what you can do with the strengths that you have. I believe playing to your strengths much more than trying to get things and sort of train things that you don't have. I'm never going to be able to parallel park like a guy. I'm sorry, ladies, but that's just the truth. And we don't have testosterone to understand where what is. So when it comes to getting a boardroom table into this boardroom, I'm going to ask Nick to help me out. But at the same time, when it comes to arranging an activity to get everybody together and cohesion and things in the firm, Nick knows, you know what, maybe just leave this one for Silna. It's different for different people. It's not just gender. It's definitely not race. It's definitely not just the way you've been brought up. People are different and people have different ways. And that's part of my why. My why is also to show people and my children and my team members specifically that it's not about who you are or what you are, for lack of a better word. It's about what you can achieve with what you have. And that's part of my why. And I think that's a very important why to have. Then you need to think about what you are selling. You can't sell your clients. If you sell your firm now, today, I've actually had a few people in the past, the attorneys trying to sell elements of their firm to me. And I've never bought any part of my firm. Everything is started organically. And I've never bought a client. I've never bought anything, because you can't sell clients, you can't sell loyalty, you can't sell good service. You can sell, contacts, but that raises a whole new set of questions under Poppy, but that's a side conversation. What are you selling? If you are selling a growing concern, what are you selling? You're selling, lease agreement, employment contracts, there's things there, and a typical expected revenue stream. If that revenue stream is exclusively reliant on you, it's not sellable, because when you go, the revenue stream goes. Even if you sign a non-compete with your purchaser, I can promise you that thing will not be sustainable without you. So look at what you are selling and if it is in fact sustainable. If you take yourself out of the equation and the firm continues creating the revenue that it's generating, give or take 80% of that, at least you've done something that means it can live apart from you, outside of you. That's really important. And if it doesn't, look at how you can remove yourself from it. Don't just go for a sabbatical for 6 months and hope and pray that it's going to work. Also, that's a strategy. I just don't think it's the best strategy. But try and remove yourself safely before you have to step out of the firm. I mentioned in the beginning of this conversation that I am actually busy removing myself out of the managing director position of the firm. But it's going to take me about a year. I've been working on this for the past 2 years already, where I start appointing the right people to take over certain elements of my position. So if the question is, why am I removing myself from the MD position? Like I said, I think at some stage your ideas get a little old and rusty. Well, for me, and as an entrepreneur, I always want to do new things that excite me. I'm also involved in a political movement. So with the elections coming up next year, I think it would be wiser for me just to take a little step back, so I am actually more available for the other things that I'm busy with without stepping away from my firm completely. You can't do that overnight. You can't wake up tomorrow morning and be like, oh, yes, okay, fantastic plan. I'm going to start doing something else. So, Silna said, I need to separate myself from my business. So I'm just going to take a step back and see if it works. That's not going to fly. Get the right people in place. But unfortunately, to get yourself to a point where you can get the right people in place, it means you need to understand what you are actually doing. So what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? Make a list of that. Really think about it. Take a lot of time and take a lot of active resting time. What I mean by that is go for hikes, go gym, go cycle, whatever you do, go play golf, go whatever. Be busy while you think about this. Ask yourself this question and keep on thinking about it. And then a few important things. So I have a few books to read. I know we don't have time to read, so I'm a massive fan of Audible. Don't know what your thing is. Luckily, currently with load shedding and the effect on traffic, it means we are stuck in traffic much, much more. So yay, thank you, Eskom, for allowing us more time to read or at least listen to books. There's a few books that I think change the way you think as a business owner, and it would change you from thinking of yourself exclusively as an attorney and thinking about yourself as a business. And I'm going to ask you this question, and then I'm going to take a sip of water so you can think about this. When people ask you who you are, people ask you about you, what is your answer? Is your answer, I am Silna, I am an attorney? Or is your answer, I am Silna? Just that. Or is your answer, I'm an attorney, I have my own practice, I have my own business, I am an entrepreneur? What is your answer when you say, when people ask you about who you are? And so it's really important to think about that. If you are an attorney, is that all you are? And if that's all you are, fantastic. Just think about the effect it has on your business. So give that a quick thought while I take a sip of water. These books, and so for everybody, somebody just asked to share the list of books. All the slideshow will be available on the e-learner afterwards. So this is one of the slides with all the books on them. So all these books make you think. You're not going to read these books, listen to these books and walk away and be like, oh, yay, now I can run a business. It takes a lot of trial and error to get to where you want to be, and be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself. But it's going to make you think. This first book, The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, I referred to Simon earlier on the Start With Why. He does a TED Talk actually on Start With Why. So if you Google Simon Sinek Start With Why, it's a fantastic TED Talk to listen to. But Simon Sinek's Infinite Game basically centers around this thing. Do you want to be your own employer and you just want to replace your income? Or do you want to build a firm that lasts outside of yourself? There's no right or wrong answer. Just know what the answer is. Know what you want the answer to be, what the answer is now, and what you need to do to get to the answer you want it to be. And then 5 dysfunctions of a team. Fantastic. If you are a sole practitioner or you have a tiny management team, like Nick and I are only 2 directors, and then we have 2 other people as part of our management team, just the 4 of us. I prefer to have a small, nimble firm. So in total, we're about 30, 35 people always. Don't want my firm to be bigger than that. Even in a firm where you are just you, your bookkeeper, your tea lady, and your receptionist, who very often will then be the same person, but you hear what I'm saying. Even in that, give this book a read. 5 dysfunctions of team. Very often having a problematic team, or even just like a bit of a niggly thing between people in a team, it's problematic, and it can actually rip a firm apart, big or small. Radical candor is so important, to be open with one another and to be really candid in difficult conversations. Nick and I have a rule. We are never allowed to have a bit of a unlucky feeling between the 2 of us without addressing it. He's currently on leave for 3.5 weeks in snowboarding in France. And just before he left, I always get stressed when I go on leave or before he goes on leave, and I tend to go into a bit of a mood. And he walked into my office one day and he closed my door and he said, "Are we okay?" And I said, "No, because I don't know exactly which matters you are busy with. I don't know which things I need to babysit when you're gone. Just talk me through it." And he said, "Silna, you're just having, I'm going on leave panic. Just be calm. Everything is under control." The attorney running in the department that he oversees is perfectly online. The fact that I don't understand exactly which matters are where doesn't matter. Everything is under control. Calm down. You need to be able to have those open conversations. You need to be able to say, you know what, you've made a decision that actually it could potentially harm the firm, or at least it just made me feel like you're not considering my input in this. So how to talk about this, how to have difficult conversations, not just between business partners, but those difficult conversations you have an attorney or your secretary, and you feel they're not really pulling their weight, instead of just moaning in your head about it or to somebody else, how to say something clearly and properly without blowing things apart. Culture always wins, guys. This one is crucial. If your firm doesn't have a clearly set out culture, core values, culture always wins. And I think a very unfortunate culture, and law firms are famous for this, is the office politics that takes over. So we are very often so far removed from the team. Unfortunately, in some ways, that you don't really understand what the politics are within your team members. And if the culture of the firm is that we're allowed to sort of rip each other apart a little or fight for matters instructions in an unhealthy way, know about it. You might not know about it, and it might mean you need to do, and I do recommend this, culture surveys at least quarterly in your firm. Get somebody in to do a culture survey for you. It doesn't have to be somebody expensive. An HR consultant would be able to do that for you. Do a quick survey. What do people think of you as management? What do people think of the culture in the firm? Get an understanding of how your team views your firm, because I promise you, what they think about it inside is the message that gets moved outside, and it could be something you don't want to see. And be brave. It's hard, guys. It's hard to be the boss. I hate that word. I hate being the boss. But the truth is, it doesn't matter how hard you fight for your team. You'll always be the boss. And as much as you're part of the team and everything, if you're not intentional around your culture and you're not intentional about the way you treat your team, things could go pretty south in a firm very quickly. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. I think most people know this. Really important. Just focus on the things that you can change and change it. Don't spend too much time on the things that frustrate you, that will just distract you. Very important, Dale Carnegie, guys. That's for the lawyers amongst us. I know the accountants always get the personality jokes, but let's be fair, sure, some of us lawyers cannot be lawyer at the best of times. And how to win friends and influence people, how to communicate, how to win people over, not in a manipulative way, in a actually inviting, get people in, get people on board way. As a business owner, if you don't have that skill, it's a bit of a problem. You can't just tell people to do things that they have to do just because they have to do it and you pay them to do it. No, people need to be managed into a culture and into a firm. So if you know you're notoriously famous for saying something a little overly straight and overly without bit of tact, maybe give this book a read. I skipped over Factfulness, a very important book. I think especially for us as lawyers, we're critical thinkers by nature. And so it doesn't easily happen that we as lawyers hear something and we just assume that what we're seeing is the truth. But even for us as lawyers, even though we're very critical thinkers, we sometimes perceive the world to be a very negative place, and we convey that message to our clients and to the people around us, the people in our teams. It's not really the case. Currently, the world is in the best position it's ever been. I kid you not. Go and look at the facts. We have less people in extreme poverty than ever before. We have a lower percentage of people on the living in very, very horrible living situations. Most people are living in a structure of sorts. Yes, it's still horrible. I hate the fact that people live in shacks, but in comparison to 100 years ago, where there were no housing, we are in a better position in the world than what we were before. Yes, we have earthquakes too, right after each other, and we're all thinking like, oh my goodness, what's happening here? Go look at the stats. We've had earthquakes like this in the past. We've had flooding in the past. So if you look at something scary and you're freaking out, oh my goodness, look at our government, look at the world government, look at the war, Nothing in this world is really new. It's happened before, it will happen again. It's important to be aware of news, but don't spend too much time focusing on the negative news that you have absolutely no time of actually running your business. So pick a little what you're thinking about. It's very important. As much as you need to focus on what you eat, you really need to focus on what you think. And then a very powerful book, Building a Culture of Freedom and Responsibility, actually based on the Netflix thing, and it's really an important book. Read a lot, read and think about your business as much as you probably can. It's very important as a legal practitioner to appreciate the fact that we choose to be in South Africa and we don't fall into the trap of believing that we have an LLB to go to another country and practice in the profession that we've studied in. We're doing it here because we have to do a bridging course if we want to practice in another country or whatever. The reason why we're in South Africa, think about it. Think about what you can do in South Africa. As citizens, we are some of the few people in the country that understand the social contract, that understands democracy, that understands that if people don't vote, this is the effect on our government. Or if people vote in a certain direction and then afterwards don't participate in the democracy, this is the effect that we're going to have in our country. We understand our constitutional law. We understand when we read the expropriation bill, it's not about what the headlines are saying. Expropriation, the current expropriation bill is still very much focused on if you want to build a road. Unfortunately, we're not laying nearly enough focus on land reform. So somewhere people focus a bit more on what does the headlines on social media or in the You magazine say about the Expropriation Act. We can read it and we can understand it. We can understand that we're still missing the mark completely on land reform. Even if the Expropriation Act is promulgated in its current form, we're still missing the mark on land reform. But what are we doing about it? What are we as legal practitioners doing to make our country a better place? What are we doing to make our firms a better place? Yes, that old story of the little girl that was walking on the beach, and she was there was a lot of sea stars that were on the beach, and she was walking, throwing this one by one sea stars back into the ocean. And a guy came up to her and he said, "What are you doing? You won't ever be able to save them." And she said, "It doesn't matter. The ones I save, I change their entire lives." Think about what you're doing. Remember when you got admitted, the judges gave you a speech, long speech. It was lovely. At the time, you probably didn't hear a word. You were just thinking like, oh my goodness, am I now admitted or am I not? Did I, what happened here? The judges always give a speech to say, remember, as a legal practitioner, welcome to the profession. But remember, in this profession, you have a much bigger duty than just doing a job. Doing your job as a legal practitioner is not enough. Being passionate about what you do is a requirement. Thinking about the people that can't stand up for themselves. It doesn't mean we all need to do pro bono work the whole time. It means when you do things, think about how you're pleading. Think about the heads of argument you're drafting. Think about the way you are interacting with your client, with your opponent, and even more so with the person that you are enforcing rights against. When we evict somebody, my team knows that at any time, I can call the person that we're evicting, the respondent, we're acting for the applicant, and ask them how did they experience the service they got from us. Yes, we are evicting them from the property, but were you treated with dignity? Were you treated in a way where you felt like, okay, we are enforcing our clients' rights against you, but we're not going to rip you apart. We're not going to shame you. We're not going to be horrible to you, but we're going to enforce our clients' rights as effectively as the attorney next to us who would actually be nasty to this guy would. it's all the same in the end. But how you make somebody feel is actually changing the way we practice. We all know that in some courts, if you don't pay some money to the clerk of the court, you're going to wait 3 weeks longer for a court date. We all know this. And payment could be actually cash, it could be pie and a Coke, it could be whatever. Think about it when you send your messenger out with the pie and Coke or with the money or whatever. Think about micro corruption. Think about how much you complain about corruption, and think about, okay, fair enough. I can get my client a quicker date. Is that just an equitable? Well, probably fair for your client, but is it just an equitable? No, it's not. It's corruption. Think about how we act. Think about what we are doing, because how does that translate into your business? No sneaky business and no underhand dealings has ever been a sustainable business model. Yes, it could solve your problem quickly today. Not sustainable. Speak up, and don't speak up because you just want to make a fuss about it. Speak up so you change the law. Speak up so you change the country, because our jobs as legal practitioners is actually to be upstanding citizens while we're building our own businesses. And I promise you, it might be a longer, slower road, but you're going to sleep soundly at night, and you're going to know that you are actually making a difference to a country that you love and to a legal system that's desperate for people to actually stand up and talk about the things that aren't right. That is always my accidental end of this particular webinar, because I am very passionate about ethical practice and actually fixing the country we we love so much. All right, that was me. I do suspect that a more exciting part of this webinar is going to come out of the questions. So I have seen the question about the rebranding. I've talked about that. Then somebody has a slightly up and down internet connection. Then question around the books. So it is very much in the online e-learner portal. So for anybody else, please let me have any questions, any comments, so we can talk about it, experiences in your business. I want to make sure that I leave you with your questions answered. Like I said, I've never had any formal business training. Actually, a while back, I considered doing my MBA. I did 2 courses halfway, didn't end up doing the exam. And I realized for me, and it's different for everybody else, I should never have formal business training, and MBA specifically for me. I'm a very wild entrepreneur. I have a very natural feel for business. And I realized the only thing I'm going to achieve by doing an MBA is probably going to scare myself, because at this stage, I have a good idea of what can go wrong in a business, but I'm not overly focused on things like business plans and these kind of things. But yeah, and the firm is not my only business, not at all. But he's my primary focus, primary business at this stage. But questions around what should I do to upskill myself as a business owner? I don't think an MBA is necessarily the best route for an attorney. Again, it could be different for everybody, but remember to read up and think and get involved in business communities. I actually have good friends called the guys from the Alternative Board, because for us as business owners, very often we feel so alone. We can't brainstorm with somebody. If you say, for instance, you want to take a stab at specializing in a specific field of law, you might not know where you go to or where to turn to. Who do you talk to? Who do you brainstorm with? And the Alternative Board is definitely a good option to look at. I'm very easy to find on the internet, so obviously on my firm's website, www.sslr.coza. You'll find my email address. It's easy to find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. Please feel free to pop me a message. Anyway, if you just want to quickly brainstorm, I'm always open to help with that. I do have an actual question. Thank you for the information. As a candidate currently awaiting a date for admission, I had moments of being negative, as you explained, but I'm hopeful for the next step and feel happy that I made the right choice after this seminar. Oh, thank you. That is actually an amazing message. Thank you. I always wonder in this particular webinar if I just scare people out of ever wanting to start their own firms. But I actually hope my intention is always to rather achieve this, to be real. And I'm sorry, guys, on the call, just forgive me for this beautiful analogy, but it's almost like having a baby. So ladies, you can appreciate this if you ever had a baby. Everybody always talks about, oh, my mother, how cute they are. Nobody ever tells you about how hard pregnancy is. So I always prefer to say, say it as it is and say it's worth it through and through. It's a pleasure, Tyrone. I'm glad you enjoyed the webinar. Then, please advise on how you dealt with negative reviews of your firm. I'm guessing it was on Google reviews. My firm has a similar situation, and I feel the review is negatively impacting the firm. The reviewer is an attorney who was a client. Oh my goodness, yeah, I feel you on that. The dispute arose around them not wanting to pay fees, and summons have been issued. Thereafter, several nasty reviews have been made stating fees were exorbitant. Would you suggest we proceed with defamation? I think that I think this may prompt them to delete the review. Okay, so negative reviews and going for defamation. Guys, be careful. Defamation, remember your defense to defamation is always it's true and in public interest. Now, how do you prove your fees weren't exorbitant or it was? Like, we know what exorbitant fees are. It's obviously very far outside of the suggested rate. But in fairness, even attorney and client rate is very low. Party and party, is extremely low. Nobody can run a firm on that kind of fees. So extremely low if it's conveyancing fees where you do have slightly more suggested line. It's easier, but in litigation, what is exorbitant? So the problem is they might feel it is true and it is in public interest for them to say to other people that you charge exorbitant fees. If you accidentally end up in a court where the magistrate or the judge feels that it was a little outside of the lines, the problem is now you have a case where there's confirmation that you are charging exorbitant fees. So I'm not saying stay away from litigation because you're scared of the outcome. I'm saying be very careful when it comes to defamation. Usually what I suggest is, the old rule, when you push against something, the moment one release, the other one can't push anymore without looking like a complete idiot and falling flat on their face. That was a legal term. But what I usually suggest is not to push back. To push back and say that you're going to you do a letter and demand that they remove the comment is usually not the wisest move, simply because people don't work like that. If somebody now feels you're charging exorbitant fees, that's the way they're going to feel. I suggest do a letter to them to say, please explain to me what you base this on. So let them put it in writing. It's easy to put something in writing on Google. Say, what do you base this on? Which fees are you comparing it to? If it's to your own fees, I mean, it's really not, it's hardly a good example. Look at a few other firms. Go do your research and show me why you're saying I'm charging exorbitant fees. That would already put him off a bit. Comment on Google, comment on their review to say this matter has been taken up, and I do invite them to explain in more detail the service I delivered and what they based the accusation of exorbitant fees on. Most people are quiet then. You would know if you're charging exorbitant fees. So I'm obviously coming from an angle where you're not charging exorbitant fees. I get that very often. And I actually personally, I recently did that exercise 3 weeks ago. No, where are we? It's already almost March. I'm sorry, I thought I was in Jan. Beginning of Jan, I did the exercise where I contacted a lot of other eviction attorneys and benchmark my fees. So when one of my clients publicly moan about exorbitant fees, I can comfortably say, talk to me about how you got to the fact that I charge exorbitant fees, and that should set it at ease. Consumers tend to enjoy active responses to reviews more than trying to take it away. Defamation is a bit of an iffy area, so I would rather approach it in that way. I hope that helps. All right, glad you enjoyed it. I'm so glad you all enjoyed the webinar. There's one message going through some challenges at my firm, and this was helpful, guys. I think we actually need to have like a little get together once a quarter of attorneys that run their own firms, almost just like a support group, more than anything else, just to share these things, because it isn't easy, and we are all doing a very tricky thing and a tough thing. Sometimes we just need each other to say, even me, but you're doing a good job. Okay, I'm a sole proprietor. I'm about to quit. It's hard to advertise. How does one ensure clients pay for their fees? Oh my goodness. Okay, sure. I'm sorry. Also, don't necessarily quit. Well, I'm very big on my debt book. This is a very important conversation. My debt book almost killed the firm in 2018, 2019. So as much as I specialized in property law, we didn't specialize exclusively in rentals and evictions. So we had a massive levy collection department. If you're not geared for collections, it doesn't work. So I don't do any sectional title anymore. SSLR here and there will do like a sectional title kind of thing when it comes to, let's say, demolition for somebody that didn't get the correct, what's the word I'm looking for? Toestemming. Look at me now, only be stuck in Afrikaans. But getting the right things done before they extended a unit. But it's important to be aware of the fact that you need to do the right things with cash in hand. So levy collections was a massive problem for me. I'm not saying levy collections is a bad thing, not at all. For us, didn't work at all, because you need to pay your disbursements upfront. So sheriff, we don't often use advocates. We do most of our own appearances, but still, you need to pay advocate. You need to pay your sheriff. It's a massive expense, and the bodies corporate are always like pushing you to like mad people. So you need to rush. They pressure you, but they never pay. And then you need to spend more money to try and collect your fees. Your cash flow is the most important thing. Cash is, in fact, king. And we are in the joyful position where we can actually charge money on trust. Make sure you treat your trust account well. It will treat you well in return. Ask for your client to pay upfront. So you're welcome to have a look at our website and the way we do billing. We broke evictions up into 5 phases. So we don't do itemized billing. Clients hate it. I hate it. If I ask an accountant how much they're going to charge me to do my trust audit, and they say, yeah, we charge 2,500 Rand an hour. I'm like, okay, how many hours will this take you? We want to know that, but we say the same to clients, right? So I've decided let's do all-inclusive billing. I'm a massive fan of all-inclusive billing. It works like a charm. So client pays the phase up front. So say, for instance, your letter of demand or your notice of motion, your funding affidavit and service of that, charge an all-inclusive fee. You know how much it's going to cost. You can obviously charge your VAT. Outside of that, I bill all my fees VAT inclusive. I'm really a goody two-shoes at the best of times. So SSL always does that, VAT inclusive, but then disbursements separately, but we do quote what the typical disbursements are. If you don't have that money on trust, we're not going to start with your eviction. Don't fall into the trap of being busy without getting paid. So before you quit, maybe just see if you can get 2 or 3 matters in through a different form of advertising. Ask for the money on trust and work as quickly as you can to get the work out of the way so you can bill and you have cash. Cash is, in fact, king. And if there's one thing that kills a business is an unhealthy debt book. I've been there, and I must say it took a bit of hard work to get out of that. But I'll be thinking about you, and I am very sure you'll be able to pull him out of there. But I know what it's like when it's hard. And please never decide to close a firm or a business at the end of Feb, end of Jan, end of Feb. Cash flow is tough for all of us. Wait for a decision like that. At least wait for August. At this time of the year is dismal for everybody. So before you pull out of that, just take 3 deep breaths, because you're probably already ahead of the game. And remember, cash flow is tight for everybody now, if that's slightly encouraging. Please advise on how to find a balance between running the business, getting new instructions, and executing existing clients' instructions while meeting deadlines. Yes. So that took me a good 15 years to get to that point. And it's mostly because I don't, I'm now in a position, I've been there for a good 6 years, where I don't run my matters myself. So getting the right people around you is very important. Getting a good candidate attorney is absolutely essential. So I can tell this story, you wouldn't mind. Greg Vermaak, my senior by a good 20 years. I actually think it's more 25, Greg, sorry. If you ever see this recording, it might be there. And he said to me at some stage, he can't trust a candidate attorney to do the work in the way he would do the work. So he rather prefers to do it himself. And I said, well, then you are your own limiting factor. You need to get help. And a well-trained candidate attorney, if you spend 2 weeks with a clever guy, guys, it's already taking a lot of weight off your shoulders. So the only way of really finding a proper balance between keeping your existing clients happy and then also still being able to have an actual life is all around people. Remember, that's the benefit of us as attorneys in comparison to the advocates. If we have advocates on the call, I'm sorry, guys. For us as attorneys, obviously we can have a lot more people supporting us and having a lot of attorneys in the firm that can actually run the work. Or you can even appoint somebody, if you enjoy the technical part of things and you love lawyering, but you're not that good at the business side of things, you can appoint a business manager, office manager. You can get a business partner in, an attorney that's as crazy as I am. There's a lot of us out there, more entrepreneurial attorneys that enjoy running the business more than practicing law. Might have to extend the horizons a little bit there. It's scary for days to share your firm with somebody and to share the kind of work you're doing with someone, but you get used to it. But just make sure you keep a very close finger on the pulse. And that's sadly the only way you can balance is to get more people in to help you catch all the balls. When I was admitted many moons ago, advertising was a gray area. Thank you for the clarification. I'm in the Facebook range, even me, but we're getting there. It's a pleasure. Defamation, because her review state, okay, yes, we talked about the defamation thing. Just be careful, guys. As lawyers, we tend to jump to legal action so quickly, and it very often harms us more than what it helps us. You can actually ask Google to remove. Yes, you can. Google will only remove if you can explain why you have to remove. So unfortunately, similar to defamation, if there's an element of truth to the review, you have to explain why you're asking for the review, for the removal. And if you have a good reason to ask for that, it's usually better to keep things public. It's people like to see transparency more than anything else. Thanks for your time. It's only a pleasure. This has been helpful. You have motivated me to start my own firm. Yay, thank you. Nothing in life is easy, the why is important. It's only a pleasure. So it's good luck and all the best. I'm very sure your firm's going to be amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, Alistair, thank you for an informative webinar. Defamation about 46 years ago when I was even younger. An attorney in Cape Town and the deputy chair of the Law Society. Then late, when I saw these wisdoms, said to me, Alistair, what did you expect from a pig but a grunt? On defamation. Alistair, thank you so much. That's exactly exactly that. So Alistair is echoing what I said. Just because somebody says things about you that's horrible doesn't mean you need to necessarily act on it. Sometimes you just need to take it on the chin and smile politely. It's a pleasure. The years of experience you have with your criminal firm really helped. It's a pleasure, I must say. One day when I'm big, I hope I can be, I can actually feel that I know what I'm doing as well, if that helps at all. I've no idea. We all just wing it and hope for the best and pray and hope and be patient. Thank you for the webinar. It's a pleasure. Okay, I think we're getting to the thanks, and it was interesting. And what is your firm's name? It's SSLR. So you'll see at the bottom of the slides the firm that's reflected there, SSLR for Steyn Leroux. And our website is www.sslr.co.za. Guys, it has been fantastic. Please don't quit. Please don't give up. Things are tough, but the world needs us. And thank you so much for giving me 3 hours of your time the day before financial year end. I hope it goes amazingly well for you. I hope you hit that sweet spot where you make a profit without having to pay provisional tax. I hope it was a wonderful financial year for you. Thank you so much for giving me this 3 hours. And if you have anything you want to discuss, or even if you just feel like giving up and you just need somebody to say, no, you're okay, please pick up the phone, make contact with me, contact me over social media or through my website, whatever. I promise I'm that person that will say, don't stress, the sun will shine again tomorrow. So have a fantastic day and good luck for the week. May you write amazing fees and land a few new amazing clients.